When I read Princess Bride, to me, it was like it spoke to me.
Fencing, fighting, torture, revenge.
She gets kidnapped, he gets killed, but it all turns out okay.
Its heart is in the right place. And it's basically a wonderful love story.
This is true love.
The little girl's fantasy
Think this happens every day?
of wanting to be swept away with her dreams.
Princess Bride is a modern fairy tale with this great sense of humor.
I've got my country's 500th anniversary to plan, my wedding to arrange, my wife to murder, and Gilda to frame for it. I'm swamped.
I think it's supposed to reflect really how kids are read stories.
Do you know what that sound is, Highness? Those are the shrieking eels.
It's about a little boy who's sick at home in Evanston, Illinois, and his grandfather comes over to read him a book to tell him that the most important thing in life is true love.
And that's really what The Princess Bride is, a celebration of storytelling.
The Princess Bride by S. Morgenstern, Chapter 1.
I grew up surrounded by fairy tales, Rapunzel and Princess and the Pea, all the ones all kids grow up reading. So yeah, I was surrounded by fairy tales.
My fairy tales were damsel in distress, you know, Snow White.
Fairy tales, you think that they can happen to you, and they spread your imagination to a special little place.
She kissed me.
Fairy tales are very important because they're myths that contain little morality tales. There's a reason that they've remained popular for so long.
I think what a fairy tale wishes for is what you would wish life could be like.
I need you to guide my sword, please.
They're magical, and nobody knows why.
If you look at Rob's choices in his career, movies that he's made, the eclectic storyline, subject matter of each one is so different. He doesn't repeat himself. This latched onto him in the little kid in him, big time.
The context of The Princess Bride is this wonderful kind of traditional classic love story of true love conquering everything and in fighting against all odds to survive. It's told in the classic traditions of fairy tale storytelling, but at the same time, it makes fun of all of that and it blends it together perfectly.
Inconceivable!
Well, it's an odd mix, isn't it? I don't know quite what it is. It's hopefully funny, it's hopefully romantic, it's hopefully exciting.
Doesn't sound too bad. I'll try and stay awake.
When Bill Goldman sat down to write this book, he had two daughters. His one daughter, he says, if I were a book, what should I write a book about? And one daughter said, write a book about a princess. And the other one says, write a book about a bride. And so he said, okay, I'll call it The Princess Bride.
The book was finished in '73. 20th Century Fox thought there might be a movie in Princess Bride. And just before we went into production, the head of Fox was fired.
A technicality that will shortly be remedied.
And that set up a series of over a decade when the movie almost happened. One studio loved it, and the weekend they were going to make it, they closed.
We're closed.
One studio loved it, and the weekend the studio executive was going to make the deal, he was fired.
Unemployed in Greenland.
Norman Jewison was going to do it at one point, and it would have been wonderful. And then we couldn't get the money.
And then years went by, and I had made Spinal Tap, and I was finishing up on The Sure Thing. And I said, you know, they make movies out of books. And then I started thinking of all the books that I loved, that I had read, and this was the one I remembered the most. I thought, well, let's see, you know, maybe I can, you know, get William Goldman to agree to, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. And I went and found out, first of all, that he had been trying to make it into a movie for like 15 years. I very naively called William Goldman up and said, I'm interested in this. He had not seen Spinal Tap. He went and saw Spinal Tap.
I went to see Spinal Tap. I screened it with my daughters. And I started shrieking. It was so funny. And I thought, good God, give him the movie.
And I was like walking on air. I thought, oh my God, you know, William Goldman wants to say it's okay for me to do this. The first two films I made were Spinal Tap and The Sure Thing. Spinal Tap was a satire. The Sure Thing was a love story. And this Princess Bride was a satirical kind of fairy tale love story. So certainly by looking at these two films, he probably got a sense that I had the sensibility and I could understand the tone of how to blend these things.
And the movie happened.
We started by looking for Wesley. And I needed to have a young guy who was good physically, who, had that kind of classic Douglas Fairbanks Jr. swashbuckling persona.
Get used to disappointment.
But at the same time be hip enough and funny enough to be able to, spin it a little bit.
He had to be gorgeous, I thought. And he had to basically be able to do all that stuff.
As you wish.
And I saw this movie, Lady Jane, and I saw Cary Elwes in it. And I thought, wow, this guy can do it. I don't know if he has a sense of humor. He looks perfect for the part. He looks like Douglas Fairbanks Jr.
I think you'd be perfect for this. You have that Errol Flynn, that swashbuckling thing.
But I don't know if he's funny. I don't know if he can do it. And I met with him.
I got a call saying Rob Reiner and his producer friend want to come and test you.
What can I do for you?
He was like perfect. I mean, he was funny. He had a great ear for doing accents and doing funny things. I thought, my God, this is like the perfect guy.
I've worked hard to become so.
He was beautiful, he was athletic, and he could be funny. And them guys are hard to find. They just are.
Then I had to find somebody to work with him, and it was described as the most beautiful girl in all the land. I mean, it's Buttercup. And we read so many women.
At that time, I was on a soap opera. So I was doing everything in my power to get out.
She was on Santa Barbara, the soap opera Santa Barbara. I said, okay, let's take a look at her. And she came in, and she just blew us away.
You mocked me once, never do it again!
It was fate. I was one of the last girls of 500 or something to come in and read.
If you tell me I must marry you in 10 days, please believe I will be dead by morning.
She looked gorgeous, and she spoke with this English accent, and she was the person. We got lucky there, and it's, I think, the perfect casting.
The Princess Buttercup! I remember Rob at the first lunch that we had, he said to me, the way I want everybody to play this is though you have a hand of cards, and I want all of us to just almost show the hand to the audience, but we never really show it. He said, that's how I want it to happen. So he collected a bunch of people that would play cards that way.
Rob knows how to talk to actors. Rob knows how to cast people.
When I first heard that this was being made into a movie, I was doing handstands.
We needed somebody who had some elegance and had some class and style.
Get some rest. If you haven't got your health, you haven't got anything.
Rob said, I have this movie I'm going to do. I have this part I'd like you to play.
My thing with Chris Guest is I would like him to be in every movie I ever make.
This is for posterity, so be honest.
Wow, this is the bad guy. Great.
I'm waiting!
The casting of Wally Shawn was the most inspired.
We are but poor, lost circus performers.
I wouldn't have thought Wallace Shawn for this part. He came in and read, and he was hysterical.
You were not hired for your brains, you hippopotamic landmass!
Andre the Giant was literally the only human on the planet that could play this part. Bill Goldman said he wrote this for Andre. He had Andre in mind when he wrote it, and he said, this is the guy that you have to get Andre the Giant.
I would go to Madison Square Garden to watch Andre wrestle, and he was really big.
It's a my fault being the biggest in this tournament. I don't even exercise.
I said, Andre, if you want to do this, I want you to do it. Is that something you feel you can do? And he says, oh, yeah, I'd do it, boss. I'd do it. No problem. I'd do it.
Don't look so good.
I feel fine.
First, they sent me a copy of the script, and Rob called me up and he said, just tell me which part you'd like to play. And the next thing I knew, the part was mine.
This is one of the first things Fred Savage ever did.
I think the kid's kind of like this, every kid. Maybe I was just nondescript enough to pull it off.
Hey, I was just 6.
And initially, when I cast Peter Falk, I said, you're going to play his grandfather.
When I was your age, television was called books.
There's something about Peter Falk that's a little bit dangerous, and there's also something that you care for about him because we've known him for so long, and he's a perfect grandfather, and he was wonderful.
All right, people, come up from now. I've forgotten my lie.
First of all, there's no castles, not many anyway, in America. We knew we had to go to, you know, England or, you know, one of the European countries.
We were working with the British. Hi. They call the director Governor.
What are you doing, Governor? Hi.
Which threw me for a complete loop.
Look, he jiggles with it. He laughs behind the camera, and the camera jiggles. Catch some of this stuff here.
We shot at Shepton Studios. We took over, I think, 3 or 4 sound stages there.
Our base of operations was in a town called Sheffield, which is in the sort of northern central part of England.
We were shooting in a castle that was built in 1065, I think. And the original tapestries were hanging on the wall. We had all the original furniture, and I think it was a museum at one time.
We had to do with what we had. We didn't have a lot of money, so we wanted to make the castle that Humperdinck lived in a little bit more majestic, so we added a couple of parapets and turrets, fake ones, that from long shots would give it a better skyline.
There was rolling farmland, there were hills, there were sheer rock face cliffs. All the exteriors that you see in the movie were all done in north central England.
Once you are put in the environment, i.e. the castle or the costume or the wigs or just the mere fact that you're in the country, where it originated, you know?
Well, there's some interiors of the hallways and the castles that were constructed, and the tank where we shot the eels and the chase in the water, and then a piece of the Cliffs of Insanity was shot on a stage. Besides that, most of it was shot on location.
A few more steps and we'll be safe in the fire swamp.
The fire swamp was created on a sound stage.
39 BW, take 3 A&B cameras.
I don't like being on the set. Most writers do. I tend to screw up scenes. There's a moment in the fire swamp where Wesley is leading Buttercup, and there's a flame spurt, and her dress catches on fire. And I scream, her dress is on fire, totally destroying the shot.
Wesley, what about the ROUSs?
Rodents of unusual size? I don't think they exist.
We had little people inside the rodents. We had one that would make the mouse move good, and he could go and sniff and do, and there was one who could scurry very fast. And we had the sequence where we were doing the fight. Anthony could do it, Anthony could do it. I said, no, we need the other guy. We need the other guy. You know, he's the guy who does it fast.
It subsequently turned out that he'd been pulled over. The cop had booked him. He was like, no, you don't understand. I've got to be at work tomorrow morning. I'm doing a movie. I'm shooting a movie. I'm a movie person. I'm an actor. I'm an actor. So, yeah, what are you doing? He says, I'm in a film called The Apprentice Prize. I said, well, what are you playing? I'm playing a rat.
So we had to go and get the guy out of jail in order to suit up in a rat suit to run around and be a rodent of unusual size. This is the magic of movie making.
That was great. Let's do one more real quick.
You seem a decent fellow. I hate to kill you.
You seem a decent fellow. I hate to die.
Neither Cary nor Mandy had any experience sword fighting.
I know they killed themselves to learn. It was shocking. I'd never seen actors work that hard. Most of the time, they don't have to.
We looked at scenes of sword fights, and we find the most difficult parts, and we turn to Peter and go, can we do that? Is that possible? Are we good enough to be able to do that?
The initial sword fight was the thing that impressed me because it was described as the greatest sword fight since Errol Flynn and Burt Lancaster. I've worked with both of these people, so it was a great challenge to me.
It's hard. I did a lot of research and bought books on fencing and got the names right and the defenses right.
You're using Bonetti's defense against me, huh?
I thought it fitting, considering the rocky terrain.
And that I knew my job was to become the world's greatest sword fighter, and that's what I needed to do 24/7. 1, 2.
You're amazing.
It ought to be after 20 years.
And luckily, there were no injuries.
Every single frame of actual sword fighting is done by Cary and Mandy. I hold that sword fight up to any scene you will ever see in any Douglas Fairbanks movie.
This is every child's fantasy, at least in my generation, play with swords. And Rob said action, and we were fighting, and I was doing this. Cut, cut. What? Rob said, we'll put in the sound later. And he was excited. He was a little pumped up. And in a rehearsal just prior to that, he had actually stabbed me in the thigh. So right before we shot, I said to the fencing master, I think he's going to try to kill me. So all that stuff that I learned, I'm basically throwing out. I'm basically now going to defend myself.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
That line, I didn't know that it would become what it became. Matter of fact, when I first read it, I went, God, you know, I don't have a lot to say, but I say that over and over again.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father.
Prepare to die.
I'd lost my father in 1972. It just hit a chord with me that I want my father back just like he does.
Father, I have failed you for 20 years. Now our misery can end.
The reason I made the movie was coming to fruition, which was I was going to get the cancer that killed my father. And I remember we were outside that castle and I took a walk in this beautiful moat and I just kept talking to my dad, saying, I'm going to write it. I'm going to write this wrong.
I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
And in my mind, I feel that when I killed that six-fingered man, I killed the cancer that killed my father. And for a moment, he was alive. And my fairy tale came true.
What?
Are you the Miracle Max who worked for the king all those years?
The king's stinking son fired me, and thank you so much for bringing up such a painful subject. I did not know the book, and Rob said, you got to read this book. I want to make this movie. You got to read this book and pick out who you want to play.
I was lucky to get Billy to do it because the character is written like a, extension of Mel Brooks's 2,000-Year-Old Man.
True love is the greatest thing in the world. Except for a nice MLT, a mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich when the mutton is nice and lean.
And the wonderful thing about working with Billy is you get gifts. He is not only a great actor and a great comic actor, but he is a great comic mind.
While you're at it, why don't you give me a nice paper cut and pour lemon juice on it? Max was easy in that I had relatives like him. Look who knows so much, huh? In creating this guy, my makeup master, Peter Montagna, and I talked about, well, what do you want to look at? What should he look like that could be different? And I said, well, he should look like a cross between Casey Stengel, who was the old Yankee manager, and my grandmother. I'm on the job. We did some Yiddish. We threw some Yiddish in that I think stayed in there. We had this little song. I did a lick nation. It's not every day you get to look like this and you have your own cottage.
We get on the set, and we begin to work.
We're in a terrible rush.
Don't rush me, Sonny. You rush a miracle man, you get rotten miracles.
But Rob would leave the room. My job is to stay there and give the off-camera lines. And Rob goes, action. And then Billy said, mutton, nice and lean with maybe a pickle on the side. And Rob was gone. Rob leaves the room. On every take, Rob would leave the room because he was about to throw up. He was laughing so hard. The only injury I sustained on that movie was I bruised a rib from holding in my laughter with Billy Crystal. And that's the God's honest truth. It was amazing.
Do the line down about takes 15 minutes for full potency.
And you shouldn't go in swimming after for at least, what?
An hour.
Yeah,
a good hour.
Rob is an actor's director. He made you feel that whatever you thought of was a wonderful idea.
Cut, great. All right, good. Print that one when we're on to 9:20.
He sort of memorizes the script. So he stands just, where the camera is, and you can see his lips move.
What's wonderful about Rob is that he has a wonderful eye and a wonderful, great ear.
I was just scared that I was having to read in front of the director with an English accent. He would put me at ease. It was just heaven for a 19-year-old.
I'd get a little into the games that I was playing, and kind of forget why I was there. And so he kind of got me a little more, kept me focused.
Rob was very gentle in the way that he directs. Very, very soothing and very calming and very easy to work with.
Okay, cut. Good. Let's just do a pickup on that last thing again. Except this time when you get to the top, do a little of that swing around,
I remember the first day he walked in he had to bend down coming through the door. And when he stood up to his full height, I remember thinking, that's absolutely phenomenal. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Everybody rallied around him. We just loved him. I mean, he was so smart and so gentle and sweet.
He was just a giant of a human being in every imaginable way, but particularly in the way of his heart.
I remember he used to put his hand on my head And when we'd be outside and it was freezing cold where we were, and it would come down to here. His fingers would come here and it would cover the back of my neck. His hand was so big. And it would keep me warm.
I remember making a point of shaking hands with him every day just to have the sensation of your hand disappearing into this mitt. His hand was this big.
And action.
Some people think wrestling is acting style, make a movie. When you're in the ring, you're on your own. If you do something wrong, they're not going to say, cut and do it again.
His acting instincts, because he had never done it before, and because he was a natural actor from being in, the wrestling ring, they were always pure. He never made false moves. He would do things that were totally natural. I mean, you never had to tell him, physically stuff, to pick up a guy's head or to move him around. He always did the right things.
That's enough! That's enough!
My children, when they found out I was doing the movie with a giant, and they said, a giant? You're working with a giant, Daddy? Really, Daddy? You're working with a giant? How big is a giant, Daddy? Is he as big as a house? Is he as big as a car? Is he as big as the doorway over there? Can he get through the door when he literally, they could not stop talking about Andre. So by the time they came to England, they were so sort of quivering to see Andre. So I brought them to the set one day, and of course they're just like gaga, ready to go nuts. And Andre was in a very long, very large trailer. And we walk up the steps, and we turn the corner, and Andre gets up. And as soon as he gets up, my 3-year-old looked at him and went,
There will be no survivor!
Beat it, or I'll call the Brute Squad.
I'm on the Brute Squad. I am the Brute Squad.
And Rob is, in the editing room. Rob knows the lines. I am the Brute Squad.
I'm on the Brute Squad.
You are the Brute Squad.
I loved Andre. He had this farm in North Carolina, as I recall, and he said he loved walking with the animals because they don't look twice in him. And he said, big people, little people, we get gypped.
It's difficult everywhere I go because they don't build anything for big people. They build everything for blind people, for crippled people, for some other people, but not for big people. So we have to fit in there. And it's not too easy all the time.
Andre had difficulty bearing weight because of his back problems. So they hired a giant where they knew he couldn't speak English, but they figured at least they won't have trouble with any of the giant stuff. And he actually handled the English language fine and couldn't lift a feather.
He couldn't even hold me. I had to be hooked up to cables when I'm supposed to fall into his arms. And, 100 pounds, he couldn't, it killed him.
My favorite moment with him, Andre and I were on the boat alone with only the script supervisor.
Hello.
She turned to Andre and she said, have you enjoyed this experience? Has it been enjoyable for you? Has it been pleasurable for you? And he said, oh, yes. She said, tell me how, what have you enjoyed about it? He looked at her and he said, without skipping a beat, nobody looks at me. There you had it. He was just one of the guys.
So, Andre, tell us what it's been like for you doing this movie. Been a rotten experience, or has it been fun?
When it was released, we knew it was a really special movie. There wasn't anything like it out there, but therein lies the problem, in a way, for marketing it, because I don't think the people knew exactly what to do with it.
They didn't know how to sell it. They didn't know whether they should sell it as a romance, as a comedy, as an adventure movie, as a swashbuckler, whatever.
I was so upset about the fact that we didn't have marketing tools and that we were going to go out and release this film without any real marketing. And I was so angry that I called 20th Century Fox and I yelled and I said, I don't want this to become another Wizard of Oz. And what I meant by that was, at the time when Wizard of Oz came out, it was a disaster. It made no money, it was a flop. And over the years, it's become a classic.
The movie didn't become really successful until the VCR came out, by which time word of mouth and people said, oh, I wished I'd seen that in the theater, I never did, blah, blah, and then it became a big hit.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
It wasn't intended to be this big blockbuster. What it was intended to be was what it was. A charming, very funny, very witty fable.
It's one of those films that's universal. It's rare you can see a film today where the whole family can go.
To this day, 8- or 9-year-old boys will come up to me and they'll look at my hand because their father has said, he's the guy and they'll just come up and, you know, how'd you do that? I said, well, actually, it was a glove.
And it's the one movie that my kids love. They're bored with all the other ones that you do. They watch 10 minutes, they're like, okay, been there, done that. And this one they like as a film.
And I think everyone associated with it feels lucky to have been a part of it. And I think everyone who's associated with the movie shares that same kind of almost like childlike glee about like, God, wasn't that great that for a little while we were a part of this. This is such a cool thing.
I don't think any of us realized at the time that we were going to be in the Wizard of Oz of our generation. And we are.
Here we have a film that is kind of timeless. You have adults that have seen it before will say, hey, this is something you want to watch. And when those kids grow up, they'll say to their kids, hey, this was a film I liked as a kid. And so when you've made a film that works for adults and children, you have a chance to grow because every generation that grows up is going to reintroduce it back to the next generation.
Maybe you could come over and read it again to me tomorrow.
As you wish.